Hello, welcome to Web of Stories. My name is Melinda, and I am here to wrap up my reading week. I will just say up here, I'm not feeling great today. I'm like at the beginning of a cold. I'm hoping that it doesn't go into a cold. So you'll probably see me sipping my Waterloo while I do this because my throat's kind of scratchy. But, you know, that's what happens in the fall. Our weather just decided to become fallish, and sometimes with the change of weather, it's kind of when you pick up those colds. So that's what's going on with me. This week has been pretty uneventful because I've been trying to claw my way out of September reading. And I will talk about that. But one thing that people always talk about in their wrap-ups, and I never do because I was crooked, because I never have anything to talk about, is like what you're watching on TV. But I am actually watching something on TV, so I'm going to share it with you. It's nothing groundbreaking, but it is all about Agatha. The Marvel TV shows when they first started on Disney Plus. I know I'm crooked. There we go. When the Marvel TV shows started on Disney Plus, they were really like appointment entertainment for my family. Like we all went down and watched it like after dinner on Wednesdays. That was our thing to do. And it started to kind of like, our family kind of drifted away from it. My husband really wasn't interested in watching Ms. Marvel, which his loss because that show was great. My husband and I watched Secret Invasion, which wasn't a great show. The kids weren't interested. There have been like a couple shows that were not appropriate for the kids. So, you know, whatever. But all about Agatha. My son and I my husband is kind of watching it. We usually when we rewatch it, we make him watch it. We have to get my daughter to watch it though. But my son and I are watching it. It's appointment TV for us. And it is really delightful. The Marvel TV shows, the quality's been kind of going down. I mean, the first WandaVision was fantastic. It was, not everyone liked it, and I understand because it was really weird, but I like that. Loki is fantastic. And then, you know, it's just sort of kind of like that. But All About Agatha is definitely on a par of at least WandaVision, which makes sense because it's from WandaVision. And my cat found some paper that they've decided to kill. So if you hear crinkling, that's what that is. And this is the perfect year to watch, the perfect time of year to watch All About Agatha because it's totally witchy and spooky. Yes, we have been really enjoying it. And then we always we'll watch the episode and then we go to like YouTube and there's a channel called Screen Crush where they break down all the Easter eggs. We always watch that. And my son has all his theories because he knows everything there is to know about Marvel. So, so I have actually been watching something on TV. I might actually start watching more things because, as I have said, one of the reasons why I don't watch a lot of TV is because we have 2 TVs in this house. And that was sort of my thing, is we don't need a lot of TVs. I grew up in a house that had a TV in every single room and I hated it. We have a TV in our upstairs bonus room, which is really mostly used for video games, which I don't even play. And then we have our TV downstairs, but there's 4 people in our house. So I usually just don't get a chance to watch television. But for my birthday last week, my husband, I have had an iPad for a long time, but it was dying and crashing. And it got to a point where I couldn't really even watch, I could watch YouTube, but some of our streaming services I couldn't even watch on it. So, and it wouldn't upgrade my operating system. It was that old. So my husband got me a brand new iPad. So now I can watch things on my iPad. So I might actually start watching things. What an idea. But, or I might just sit around and continue to read. That's always a possibility too. Anyway, I wanted to be one of the cool kids and tell you what I'm watching. Another thing before I get into books, I left a comment on a video by Alex at Frank Fiction. And in it, I had said something which I think she took the wrong way, but then I feel like it's something I should just say. It was a book review she did, Light of Uncommon Stars, and I said, you know, I gave this 4 stars, but my ratings don't mean anything. And then she wrote this very supportive thing. Of course they do, and that was very nice of her, but I did not phrase my comment well. I don't. It's not that I think what I think of a book is insignificant. But if you follow me, and you guys are just down below if you want to do it, if you follow me on Storygraph or especially Goodreads, what I'm saying, don't put too much stock in a rating that I give a book. I've really toyed with how to rate books, and I know I kind of started in my last monthly wrap up, just instead of even giving you ratings, saying, well, if I rate a book 5 stars, I'll tell you. But I recommend this. I don't recommend this. I recommend this. I highly recommend this. That's what it's gotten down to. Because rating is just hard. And I do put ratings in to Storygraph and Goodreads kind of for my own sort of record, but they're not always really accurate of what I thought of a book. So what I'm saying is if you see a book and I've given it, the thing about Goodreads is I round up because I don't do half stars. So let's say you see a book that I gave 4 stars to on Goodreads. Don't think, oh, that's a 4-star book. That's just a book that kind of at the time I'm like, okay, I'm going to put this here because I think maybe I'll recommend this a lot or something. So just saying. When I say you can't put a lot of stock in my ratings, that's what I mean. But thank you, Alex, for the little pep talk about my ratings. That was very sweet of you. Anyway, let's get to this week because I don't know how long my voice is going to last today. This week I had 1 DNF and then I finished 3 books. Let me start with the DNF. I DNF'd The Power by Naomi Alderman. This was one of my self-destruct books for this year, and it's going to self-destruct. You know what? I read, I think, about 50 pages of it, and I couldn't keep track who anyone was, and I didn't really care. That's probably the best way to describe it. It wasn't gelling with me. Sometimes, to be fair, maybe it was the wrong time, but I wasn't as interested enough to give it a not right now. It just is a DNF. I'm not going to go back to this book. I know some people really like this book, and that's great. I'm just not the reader for this book, so that was my DNF. Now, I'm actually really proud of the 3 books that I finished, and I've had weeks where I finished like 6 books, so you're like, only 3 books? That's not much. You're right, it isn't, but 2 of those books were over 600 pages, so I'm very proud of that. I'm going to start with the one that wasn't over 600 pages. And I have talked about this if you watch my Wednesdays with Will video. The Twelfth Night. Love this. I love this play. It's my favorite Shakespeare play so far. And true. I have some very emotional ties to this book. Like, experiences in my life that this brings to mind. That it's emotional, happy thing for me. So, there's an element of that in me saying it's one of my favorite plays, but I do really enjoy this. And if you are interested, go see this week's Wednesdays with Will, because I talk about it there. I should also add, after I filmed that video, I realized that in my book of short stories, That Way Madness Comes, I think, by Dahlia Adler or something like that, there is a 12th Night short story, so I will read that. I just haven't yet. Now, the 2 books that were both 600 pages. I'm going to do these in opposite orders that I finished them. The first one was a buddy read that was like a month-long buddy read. And I did start this on September 1st and I finished it this morning, September 27th. There were 4 of us, but then it came down to myself and Michelle at Michelle Lynn Read. So we both finished it. She finished it last night. I finished it today. And this is A Prayer for Owen Meany by John Irving. Now, I had previously read this book, actually, years and years and years and years ago. It wasn't really a movie adaptation. It was like a movie adaptation of like the first 2 chapters, it seems like, but it was called Simon Birch. And I remember seeing that movie and then I read the book afterwards, but it was so long ago that I have little to no memory of it. In fact, there's one plot point that I kind of remembered, but I remembered it involving a different character. So it was a complete shock to me when it came up. I was like, whoa, what happened? So this was, while it was a reread, it felt very much like a first time read to me because I didn't remember much of it at all. So this is a story about 2 boys. There's a boy, John Wheelwright, and starts when they're children. And he has a friend who's a very odd little being the operative word, a little boy named Owen Meany. And Owen Meany they don't really say what he is. He's just very small. Like towards the end of the book when he's an adult, they say he just is barely 5 feet tall. So he's a smaller person and he has this really high squeaky voice that never changed through puberty. So it's that really high childish voice. And there's just sort of and Owen is very smart. And he gets it in his mind that he is an instrument of God. And so a lot of this book is them growing up together and what happens to them. So I'm really, and this is definitely one where I'm saying don't put too, I mean, I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads and Storygraph. I think I gave it 3.5 on Storygraph. I don't know. I mean, there are things in this book that are just perfection. Just perfection. Cat is now scratching at the carpet. She's making all the noise. And I can't get into it. Like, there's a scene in it, and I'm not going to tell you which one it is, but it is like, it just shook me. And it wasn't there were a couple of them actually, that it wasn't anything graphic, just the words that are used and how they're crafted. Amazing. This was, according to Goodreads, 640 pages. When I divvied it up for the buddy read, I got the, out of the library, I got the mass market paperback, and it was 692. So it was a big book, and there's 9 chapters in that book. So well, if you like short chapters, it's not a book for you. You know, everything comes really, well, I shouldn't say everything. About 75% of this book wraps up really, really well at the end. Like, you don't understand why, and then you don't understand why you've been reading this, and then at the end it all comes together. 75% of that. It's the 25% that's not there that was very frustrating. So while this book is mainly told starting in like the late 40s all the way up through, the main action is through 1968, late 60s, there are these parts where it's present day flashbacks. Now, the present day in this book is 1987. And I don't care. Now, a lot of the discussion about this, it's what Johnny's life is like in present day. And it doesn't really wrap into the rest of the story. I'm like, why are we even, this doesn't have anything to do with this. I mean, I've read the book. I can tell you at the end, it doesn't have anything really to do with it. But the other thing is, he spends a lot of time complaining about the Iran-Contra affair. Granted, I was a teenager when that happened and not paying attention to the news. But I just kept reading that and thinking, well, isn't that cute? Because let me tell you about some of the stuff that's been happening in the country these days. I just started getting really distracted and frustrated with him bringing up this 1987 recent political rants that I really didn't feel tight. They did not need to be there. Plus, because they were like current when they were written, this book came out in 1989, I think. Let me see, I should have it right here. It came out in 1990 or 1989. Came out in 1989. This was present day current news. Well, when you write that, you kind of have to keep in mind it's not always going to be present day current news. And so I don't feel that really aged well. And every time it came up, I would just get so frustrated because I'd be like, come on. Why are we spending time on this? If your book is over, if you have a 600 plus page book, you can't have everything, if you have to earn those 600 pages. And I kind of felt like about 200 of those pages weren't earned. They should not have been there. So that was really frustrating. There were also some other issues of things just being dated, things that didn't age well. The one that comes to mind is he makes reference to a developmentally delayed person, and he uses a term which in 1988-89 was just the term you use but is now a slur. So things like that show up in it. But it's like, whoa, but I also like, what are you going to do about that sort of thing? But there were a lot of things I liked about this book. The characters, Owen Meany is a character you will never forget. And there are a lot of very colorful characters in this book. There's some characters who are a little too colorful for my taste. Johnny has these cousins. Oh my God. They drove me insane, especially when they're kids, the way they behave when they're kids. I'm like, I want to just, they were too much for me. But the characters are all fantastic. There's a lot dealing with faith and spirituality in it because Owen thinks he's an instrument of God. And I actually really enjoyed that. They're in this little town in New Hampshire. There's basically 3 different churches or religions. There's Catholicism, which Owen was Catholic, but he's not anymore. His family was Catholic and then they became Episcopalian. So there's Episcopalians and there's Congregationalists. And Johnny was raised in the Congregationalist church, but then his mother got remarried and they went to the Episcopal church. So, and So they kind of talk about those three. Personally, I'm an Episcopalian, and I kind of like some of the, I thought it was kind of fun, some of the things that John Irving had to say about the different things, because she really wants to be heard. So I just really thought that, John Irving is trying to say something about faith in this book. I wouldn't say he's trying to say anything about religion, because I think just the fact that you have these, and Catholicism isn't in that much, but you have these religion, it's pretty clear to me he's trying to take religion out of faith for this. And there's some discussion of that, but the way he talks about faith is really good. So definitely amazing stuff in it, but it needed about 200 pages taken out of it. So that was my kind of issue with that one. It's also the book, and this is my own fault. I'm not blaming anyone for this except for myself. I should not have taken this on this month. It was the book that was just too much for me. And, I've talked all month about how I feel like I'm just overwhelmed with my reading and under pressure. And a lot of it's because of this book. I thought, if we're going to do a 600-page book, but spread it over a month, that's not going to be bad at all. And I did not figure that well, because it was, it was actually it was too much. And that is my own fault. I should have known better. So the second book, which is actually the first book that I finished, that is over 600 pages. I did not realize it was over 600 pages until I was like halfway through it, because it was a library book I got on Libby from my library, obviously. So I didn't have the book to know how many pages were in it until I was like, man, this is taking me a long time. And I went and looked up the pages. I'm like, okay, it's over 600 pages. That's why. And this is Dark Fire by C.J. Sansom. It's the second Matthew Shardlake book. So the first one was Disillusion, which I enjoyed. I think I gave that one like an A or 4. It was pretty good. There were a couple of things I was like, but really it was pretty strong. And this one was maybe not quite as successful for me, but I still really enjoyed it. I had some structural issues with it. Mainly, there are 2 kind of mysteries going on with this, and I really felt like they should have tied together better. And I was getting really frustrated when because one of them was more interesting to me. One was more of a political mystery, and one was more of a personal, or not really personal, but more a human level mystery. And I was more interested in that. But so every time we'd get pulled away from it, it was very frustrating to me because there was no tie from that to the other one. That was really my big frustration with this book. That being said, both mysteries on their own were very strong, and I thought very well done. If you remember, after I read Disillusion, I watched the first season of Shardlake, which is the adaptation of this series, which the first season is Disillusion. And there was a character, I believe, named Jonathan, that was in the book that they switched out with another character named Barrack. And I was like, why would you do this? I was mad about that. And I realized why they did that. And this was my suspicion, so I was right. Barrack is a character that shows up in this book. And so I think just for economy, they just brought him forward into Disillusion. For a TV show, I understand why they did that. Fine, whatever. But yes, we do, in the book, we finally get to meet that character. And characters are done really well in this book. C.J. Sansom, my favorite thing about these books, all 2 of them that I've read so far, is they're set in Tudor England. And they really bring Tudor England to life. And usually when we read about Tudor England, we read about Henry VIII and his wives and Mary and Elizabeth. It's all about the royalty. And the royal family's kind of in the background on this. It's sort of there enough to kind of place you in history. In the first book, they talk about, and even in the first book, it was a little bit more to do with it. They talk about the execution of Anne Boleyn, who's referred to as Nan Boleyn in this book, which I should have caught on right away. And it took me a second to figure out that Nan Boleyn was Anne Boleyn, because that was one of the ways she was commonly known at the time. And then in this book, kind of in the background, Henry VIII is married to Anna Cleves, and he's kind of having some fun with Catherine Howard. So he's still married to Anna Cleves. That's kind of where we are in this. And it's just kind of there. Thomas Cromwell plays a much bigger part in this book. Which makes a lot of sense if you read the book. This one, it's for a 600-page book. It goes at a pretty good clip. Even if we're the two plots aren't as tied together as I'd like. But I really I enjoyed it. I thought it was great. I do think I preferred Disillusion only because of that plot issue. But I think, it's making me excited to read on in the series. So I finished this, returned my copy, put the next one on hold, which who knows when it'll come in. And I will make sure that I look up how many pages are in it before I start it. So yeah. So that was Darkfire by CJ Sansom. So that was my reading week. I kind of feel now that those 2 books are done. I have 3 days left in September. I'm going to finish my current shorty. I did not get to all the shorties that I had wanted to. I'm currently reading Books and Islands of Ojibwe Country by Louise Erdrich, whatever that's called. I'm reading that one. I had 1 and 2 thought well, I'll finish this and then I'll read at least 1 more. That's just not going to happen this month. But the one that I had kind of saved to read after that was The Body by Stephen King. So that still may make an appearance in October. I've already done my October pilot. Well, it came out yesterday. My TBR Pile of Possibilities for October video. But that one might be on there. Oh, speaking of future videos, on Tuesday, I have my September book haul. And at the end of this, it is long. I'm sorry, it is. And at the end of it, I say, oh, I'm not going to go to the library book sale that starts at the end of this month because I'm going to be good and pull myself back. And that's all very noble and everything. But after I filmed that, I realized that the book sale doesn't start till the end of October. So I might still go to it. I don't know. So when I say that I'm not going to go to it, don't think I'm that noble. I may cave on that one. We'll see how October goes. But let's just say I'm not going to be negative on my books again this month, okay? Anyway, my voice is starting to go, so I'm going to end this here. Like, subscribe, join my Discord, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.